Hello, Richard from budgetguitarist.com. Today I'm shooting out my Squier Affinity Strat against my American Strat. Now, to be totally fair, the body on my American Strat is actually a Fender Strat body made in Mexico. But everything else is American. This comparison video is just for funsies because Squier has a humbucker in the bridge here and the Fender does not, and these guitars are targeted at two very different players. But we're going to compare 10 things on these two guitars that I hopefully don't drop. Let's do that. Number one, weight. So we're going to weigh these guys with this fish scale that I got. Is it scientifically, mathematically perfect? No, but I mean, this is the budget channel. It's going to be ballpark good enough. So let's weigh these guys. It's like playing the claw machine here. Okay, here we go. I got 7.11 pounds. 7.96 pounds, so practically 8 pounds. So this is heavier. The American Strat is heavier. The Squier wins. Number two, sustain. I think sustain is one of the most misunderstood aspects of guitar playing. It's almost impossible to test it in a scientific manner, but I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna play an E major chord on both, record them direct, no compression, and then we'll compare them in Logic Pro. Okay, so here I've matched up the volumes as closely as possible, and I'm going to stop the video at several points so that we can see how the levels compare between the two guitars. Remember, this was recorded with no compression and no amp simulation. First breakpoint. If you look at the stereo output in the lower left-hand corner, these two guitars are super close in terms of sustain. Let's keep going. Second breakpoint. They're still super close. You might give a microscopic edge to the American. Third breakpoint. Again, very close. A teeny edge to the Affinity, perhaps? Fourth breakpoint. At this point where there's almost no signal left, they're still extremely close. In my opinion, there's barely any difference in sustain between these two guitars in this test. Now, sustain can be impacted by the strength of the pickups and a lot of other factors, and it'd be interesting to test these two guitars if they had identical pickups. I mean, it would also be interesting to test every note on the fretboard on both guitars, because the guitar with a better fretwork should be able to sustain some notes slightly better than the guitar with a less optimal fretwork. But in general, these two guitars are very similar when it comes to sustain. 3. Neck. The American neck feels wonderful. The Strat neck feels a little rough, and you can feel the skunk stripe, which I hate. Now, these things can be fixed. You know, you sand it down, some true oil, sand it some more, a little wax, and it'll feel great. But that's a lot of work, and it's not really a good idea for absolute beginners. But I will make a process on how to do that at some point. But the American wins. Number 4, frets. Fretwork on the American neck when I got it new was almost perfect out of the box. I mean, there were 1 or 2 frets that were a teeny bit high in places, but it was really good. The fretwork on the Fender was good, but, you know, maybe 6 or 7 spots where they were not perfectly level. I mean, again, this can get fixed with a level crown. I just made a video where I did a level crown on this guy. But that process is definitely not for beginners, so basically the American wins. 5. Electronics. In my opinion, the pots and the tone caps sound the same. But I mean, the pots on the American are higher quality. They're less likely to fail in the future. And again, I don't think you want to replace the pots on this unless you really want to. But I won't be doing that unless they fail. I mean, again, the American wins. For the money, it better. Hardware. True to pattern, the hardware on the Squier is substandard compared to the American. The American Strat wins when it comes to parts. Number 7, pickups. Pickups are trickier to compare because this guy's got ceramic pickups. This guy's got custom shop Alnico 5 Texas Special pickups. Here's some sound samples. For most uses, for me at least, the Fender wins, especially for that aggressive edge of breakup Strat sound that I love so much. You know what I'm going to say, right? You can buy Texas Special pickups and put them in here for $270. So the American wins again. 8, looks. All right, this is debatable, but I think the Squier looks cooler than the Fender. But, you know, that is very subjective. But the Squier wins. Number 9, cost. No contest, Squier wins. It's like $240, $250. And if I wanted to buy an American Strat and add Texas Special pickups, I'd be looking at $1,600. So the Squier wins. Number 10, value. All right, this is very subjective again, but I'll give the edge to the Squier. I could mix a Squier in a track, and most people would have no idea what kind of Strat it is. It sounds like a Strat. Every bit of this guitar can be upgraded. If it gets lost or stolen, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'd rather have the Fender. But I really wanted an inexpensive Strat with a humbucker in the bridge. And I'm happy with this Squier. It looks good, it's fun to play, sounds good. Quite frankly, when it comes to value, I think the Squier wins. So there you go. I am personally a big fan of the Squier brand. This thing is not a Fender Strat, but it is definitely a Strat. It's good enough for recording, it's good enough for the stage, and I'm happy with it. And you might ask, well, if you've got an American Strat that's better, why would you ever play this thing? There's a few reasons. Yeah, I like the way it looks. I like the lighter weight. It's got a humbucker, which this does not have. If I want to double track a Strat, it's kind of neat to have two different sounding Strats panned left and right. And if I'm going somewhere and I don't want to risk bringing this one, then I'll just bring this guy. Actually, that's what John Mitchell of the band Frost does. And he's one of my guitar heroes. All right, I admit it. I got this one because it looks like the one that John plays. It's the same model. I mean, hey, if it's good enough for John Mitchell, it's certainly good enough for me. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you some future Friday at 5.